Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rania Nashar. I'm pleased here to be with Mr. Stephen Mnuchin, the former Treasury Secretary of the United States, as well as a distinguished investor, investment banker, and expert in global finance and economics. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Thank you. We are here at FII to talk about the future of global investment. Many in our community are interested to understand what is the next for the United States. So, how would you assess the current state of the US economy and what are the greatest opportunities for future investment in the US?
Well, first, let me talk about the current state of the US economy. And you really have to put this in perspective because we came into the last year with one of the best economies we've ever had and one of the lowest unemployment rates. And obviously, we were all caught surprise by the impact of COVID-19. And as a result of that, had to take the unprecedented step of shutting down the entire economy, which is something that obviously none of us have ever experienced. At the time, I was concerned that unemployment was going to get as high as 25%, and we may see another great depression, not great recession. But working with Congress, we were able to very quickly execute a very large fiscal response. Now it's close to $4 trillion. We also worked with the Federal Reserve on 13 emergency facilities and with their own monetary impact. So we've really sustained, I think, a very significant limiting the downside and then having a big increase. Obviously, in the third quarter, one of the largest GDP numbers we've ever had. But I think there are still parts of the economy that are still impacted, and we still need to get more people back to work. It's obviously had a big impact on small businesses.
Yeah. So, since we are talking here about the small businesses, what impact have the stimulus packages had on SMEs, which represent 90% of the businesses, as well as 50% of employment worldwide? And what else is needed to fuel growth?
Well, as you said, and the numbers are pretty staggering of how large of the private economy is dependent upon small businesses. And as you said, 90% of the businesses and 50% of the unemployment. And that was one of my concerns. If 50% of the small businesses had laid off people, that was 25% unemployment as it was. The good news is a lot of the big companies had resources to sustain a shutdown. The small companies did not. So we created what we called the Paycheck Protection Plan. It was a loan that small businesses could get. And if they used the money appropriately to pay their employees, it turned into a grant and it was forgiven. And we've done over 500 billion of that now. With the most recent legislation, that'll go up to 800 billion. And small businesses will have the opportunity to take second loans if their revenues were down 25%. So I think that's really helped. Unfortunately, there are going to be a lot of small businesses that go out of business. It is unfortunate. And you asked me about the investments. One of the things we've seen is obviously the stock market is back at a level that's higher than it was before the pandemic. And I think what you've seen is part of that is a result of 0% interest rates and a large fiscal response. Part of it is for certain large businesses, they're booming. They're doing better than they ever have done. Their business models, whether it's hybrid business models, whether it's online business models, have really sustained. And they've unfortunately taken a lot of business away from small businesses. And any small business or big business, quite frankly, that's been in entertainment, travel, hospitality has just been devastated. So those are the areas of the economy that I think are going to have to be focused to be rebuilt. And I think many of them are, have come out of this era, if they've survived, with too much leverage. So it will be a very good investment opportunity.
Indeed, you're right. Um, as my final question, you know that over the last 2 days in the FII, all the discussions are about the rebirth of the economy and the new renaissance. So, from your experience, what advice would you give to the leaders and investments moving forward in the new post COVID economic context?
Well, I think although the leaders around the world responded very quickly, I think what this shows is we were completely unprepared for this type of a healthcare crisis. And I think the lesson was where previously we had not seen these types of diseases travel around the world at the rate they did. I think the answer is we need to be prepared for that. We need to have better medical equipment ahead of time. We need to know how to deal with this. And it's a global issue, as we've seen. When it impacts one country and people start traveling, they travel around the world. The other piece of advice I would say is, although the large economies have fared reasonably well, all the developing economies are going to take a long time to rebound. I think we all have a responsibility to contribute and make sure the vaccine distributions. Debt relief is something we've worked on very significantly at the World Bank and with the IMF.
This is really interesting. I'd like to thank you, Steve, and we really appreciate you joining us today. And we look forward to following what you do next. Thank you
Thank you.
so
It's a
much.
pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.